Hello, Flavio here. So happy to have an opportunity to spend a moment with you and share one idea that has helped so many people over the years since I've been in practice. And this is the idea of transitioning from a job to a business. First, let me tell you how I define the idea of a job and the idea of a business. And then I'll tell you how I discovered that. And then I'll tell you what you can do to begin your own transition if you are in that situation. So what I mean by a job is any kind of activity that you must perform if you want to make money. So whether the person is a surgeon, a lawyer, a judge, a police officer, a carpenter, a landscaping person, whatever, right? Whatever, I have to be there and perform a particular function in order to make money. The way that we are defining it here is that it's a job because I have to be there to do it to get paid. Now, the person might be a professional, they might be in business for themselves, as we often say, but the way we're defining it, it is still a job in the sense that if I'm not there, there's no money coming in. I have a job, for instance, I'm a hypnotherapist. I used to think of myself as being in business for myself, but that, of course, is a mistake because if I'm not doing a session with a client, I'm not getting paid. I have a job. A business, on the other hand, in the sense that we're defining here, is an activity that generates money for me even if I'm not there. So for instance, if I had a factory with a bunch of workers, a foreman, a manager, and administration and so forth, salespeople, that business, that entity is producing money even if I'm not there. It could be clear across the world at a beach somewhere or engaged in another job perhaps, and that business would still generate money. So a job is something that I must perform to make money. A business is something that would generate money for me even if I'm not there. That's just how we define the term for the purpose of this particular program or this particular process. I don't mean to say that these are the true dictionary definitions of the two words. I'm just saying how we, and the reason why that becomes relevant is because a lot of people perform an activity and they don't have a boss in the formal sense of the word. So they say, well, I'm in business for myself. What is it that you do? I cut grass for a living. That's fantastic. And what happens the days you don't cut grass? Well, I don't get paid. Well, we have a job, and your job is to cut grass, which is absolutely fantastic in the definition that, in the way that I'm defining it. So that is fine and dandy. I've had a job for 27 years doing hypnosis. The question is, a lot of people get to the point with their jobs where they want to transition into a business. Let me tell you how I discovered this. This was my first year in practice back in 1997. I started in 96, but this happened, I started in November of 96. So within my first year of practice, a couple comes to see me. And, the way, in parentheses, the way I work with couples, and a couple to me is any two people that need to work out their relationship. It could be a father, son, daughter, mother, neighbor, and oftentimes it's a married couple, like a man-woman type of thing, This couple comes to see me, and I've always said, I have this motto that says that there are no relationship problems. There are personal problems that affect the relationship. So when the couple comes in, the three of us talk, and we agree on some changes that we all need to make in order to make the couple function better. If we have an agreement, then we meet individually to use hypnosis to get those changes to occur. Give you a simple example. Couple comes in, one of the parties says, I'm bothered by him or her, because it goes both ways, because, let's just say it's him, because he smokes too much in the house. I say, Mr. Jones, would you be willing to quit smoking? That would very much please your wife. He says, yes, I very much would, but I can't. I can help you with hypnosis. Would you like to come in tomorrow at 3? And I can help you quit smoking. See, at that point, that session becomes a private session. She doesn't have to be there because we're focusing on his own mind, on his own smoking habit, that kind of thing. So this couple comes in to see me, and it surfaces, the wife ventilates the idea that she's frustrated with her husband's level of income. We began to discuss this, and I invite him to come back the next day to discuss the way in which he's making money. He tells me that he's in business for himself. It doesn't take long for us to figure out that he has a job, he needs to be there. And we begin to talk about his attitudes toward money, how he sees things, and so forth. And this was my first year in practice. I didn't go to business school. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a tax planner, nothing like that. I'm a hypnotist. And, most of you already know I went to school to learn how to teach engineering. And my first year in practice, and really to this very day, it's been 27 years, I'm still learning how to do this job. And I learned because I like to read and I like to talk to other people. So what happened was, with a combination of hypnosis, talking, brainstorming, active listening, and so forth, we discovered that there were some ideas in his unconscious mind that limited his ability to grow financially. We began to work on that, and he developed a business. I know the rest of the story because about 6 months after our last session as a couple, the problem was resolved, as they told me. About 6 months after our last session, the couple comes back in. It was a very kind gesture of them, and they say, look, we just want to tell you the rest of the story, what has happened. We're very happy now, and now my income has doubled. And to make a long story short, this man went from being involved with a job, essentially, where he needed to be there to make money, to having a business where he actually employed other people, and as a result of that, doubled his income in a span of 6 months. So then I discovered that we were on to something. I would talk to a lot of people, and they would say, yeah, I have my own business. Okay, what is it that you do? I do X, Y, or Z. That's fantastic. How many people do you employ? None. I'm in business for myself. I'm a sole practitioner. I used to think of myself as being in business for myself. I'm repeating it, but it's true. It's so easy to be deceived by your own ideas of what a business is, right? And over the years, a ton of people have come over to me to say, look, I'm frustrated, because what really happens when we think we're in business but actually have a job is that typically we're more frustrated than we would have been had we had a job, and we don't necessarily make more money than we would have made had we had a conventional job, because there are expenses and all kinds of things, right? So a lot of people are frustrated. They come over to deal with the stress. And by talking about the business, we quickly uncover that a great deal of the stress has to do with the notion that they're telling themselves, oh, I have a business, but in reality, they have a very stressful job where they have to wear multiple hats, do multiple functions, and not necessarily make multiple salaries. So oftentimes, talking with these people, they do want to transition into what we define as a business, and then the question is how to do that. Well, two things must occur somewhat simultaneously. I used to think that there was a sequence there, but I discovered that it doesn't work that way, because the two things that I'm about to tell you are intertwined. In other words, we have to do them simultaneously, and it is not a one-shot deal. If a person has been in a job such as the one that I've described for, let's say, any length of time, a few years, there's some ingrained habits that must be overcome in order for them to develop a business. In other words, they've developed habits. They've developed a way of doing things. They have everything in their heads. Now things have to change. So changing the mindset from a job to a business is a huge deal. The mindset has to change, and that's huge. That's one thing. Another thing is changing the mindset regarding money and prosperity. That's a whole different topic. Oftentimes in childhood, we accept messages from the environment, from culture, from religion, whatever, that there's something illicit or something bad about too much wealth. And those images or those emotions or those messages remain ingrained in our subconscious mind, thus making it difficult for us to prosper to a higher degree. So there's a huge mindset shift that involves, that's stage one, which is intertwined with two, and I'll tell you what two is in a moment. Stage one has an A and B part. Part of it has to do with the mindset of a job transitioning to the mindset of a business. And part B of stage one is, how do I see money, prosperity, and wealth? And those mindsets, those unconscious programs, those ideas need to evolve as well. So that's a mindset shift I call part one. Part two has to do with what we call organization. It's not as simple, it's simple on paper, it's simple when I explain it to you, but when a person actually sits down to do it, they realize it's a little tricky. So the word organization is rooted in the word organ, right? So in the body, in the organism, we have organs, and organs are groups of cells and tissues that have a particular function. So in a business, you have organs as well. So for instance, you have the sales department or the sales function. You have the marketing function. You have the house cleaning function. You have and on and on and on, right? You have different functions there. Let's begin to think of each one of those functions for just a moment as an organ or as a department. And what we need to do here is name those functions and describe them in writing. And it must be in writing, because otherwise our minds go into a process that we call looping. In other words, I begin to think of the same thing over and over, because we always think of the most comfortable thought or the most common thought. It is like a lawn. You're in a campus, like a college campus, and there are several buildings, and there's no pathways connecting the buildings, just a lawn. And people begin to walk on a particular path to get from here to there. After a while, the grass is actually marked, and a pathway, a trail develops there because people keep walking there. Well, if you are the newcomer to the college campus and you see that there's a trail connecting point A to point B over here that has already been marked on the grass, chances are you're going to walk on it because it has already been walked so many times by so many other people, thus establishing that that's probably the most effective path between point A and point B. The same thing happens with the brain. Those synapses, those connections, create what we call habits. In other words, if I always think of task A in my business, let's say, then thinking about task A is actually the go-to thought. It becomes easier to think about that because I always think about that. So that's like the easier path, the path of least resistance. So if I try to organize my job into a business in my mind, it's never going to work because I'm going to be looping and thinking only the same thoughts. So it has to be done in writing. When I download my thoughts on a piece of paper or the computer, I can see what I'm writing, and I can therefore organize those ideas. And the first step is going to be to list all of the functions that must occur in order for the activity to happen. So for instance, if I told you that I'm a car mechanic, I'm not, but as an example, and I have never been a car mechanic, so if you are one, my example may not be exactly true, but follow me along so you understand the point here. Suppose I told you I'm a car mechanic and I have a shop where I repair cars. What are the functions that go into this? Well, one function is I have to have some degree of marketing to get new customers to come over and have their cars repaired. I have some type of sales. Now you might say to me, dude, I'm alone in there. I know. That's because we wear different hats if we're the single practitioner. But if we break it down, you realize that you're really performing different functions or different jobs if you think about it. The first thing we need to do is to write down what those jobs are. So I have a marketing function, I have a sales function, then I have some type of receptionist function. When a customer walks in, I got to receive them. I have some type of inspection function where I inspect the car to be repaired. I have repair work to do. I have to buy tools and supplies for the shop. I need to be able to perhaps detail the car, so I need to buy cleaning supplies before I can deliver it to the customer. I need to be able to have ongoing education. I need to learn more and more about the new systems that are new in your cars. I need to buy different kinds of tools, not just mechanical tools, but also software tools and that kind of thing. I need to do some billing, some accounting, some bookkeeping, some tax planning, whatever, right, for the business, and on and on and on. And as you can tell, these are all different functions. Pretend each one of them is a whole department full of people. Now, I need to write down a list of those functions and I need to describe them. What does it mean? How do I get clients? Well, I just go around the neighborhood and I pass out flyers. Okay, I describe that. That may not be the optimal way to do it if I want to transition into a business, but that's what we've been doing. The point is that the function of the marketing department is to spread the word. Sales would be once I have an inbound phone call or solicitation, I can address that and close on a business deal, right? And on and on and on. I describe all the functions. And that's really the first step. And the reason why I say it's difficult is because for the sole practitioner who has had that job for many years, they do all of that intuitively and it's all in their heads, right? So that's why I say they have a job. They know what they're doing, but it's impossible to duplicate that. If I have been that car mechanic doing all of that on my own 6 days a week, as I was a hypnotist doing this on my own for many years, I mean, there were many years during which I had a large office with 7 other practitioners. There are a total of 8 of us, and I kind of ran the you know, they call me the clinical director or whatever, so I kind of ran that a little bit or helped to organize it a little bit, and that was a little different. But I also wore the hat of an employee in a sense, you know, being one more hypnotist in there. But the point I'm making is that when we do all of that, you know, the transition that I had to go through was difficult because everything was in my head. I knew who was coming when, what time, who called, who didn't call, what this person needs, what that person's doing. I knew everything because I was the only person there. The moment I got a second person in the office, if we don't have an effective communication system, we cannot keep track of what's going on. And once you have 8 people working with different modalities, different kinds of therapies going on, different kinds of clients at different times of the day and night, there's no way to keep that going unless there is some pretty good organization, right? So that's really the first step. And the reason why it's difficult is because we are used to doing things on our own, and it takes a mindset shift that is humongous to download what we know onto paper. And if this is something that you want to do, in other words, transition from a job to a business, then that's always the first step. Write down the functions and write down a description of the functions. After that, we're going to have to populate those functions. And what I mean by that is we're going to have to assign a person to do each one of those functions formally. Now you say, dude, what are you talking about? I'm the only one there. I know. Then you have to sign your name underneath each one of those functions. And it is important that you commit to doing each one of them because as a sole practitioner, we always end up doing what we're good at, what we like to do, and we always neglect what we're not good at and what we don't like to do. So by writing down the functions and being responsible for each one of those functions, you will see that there are gaps in what you have been doing, hence the limited growth. You also know who to hire in the future according to the tasks that consume more time and produce less revenue. That's how we begin to hire people. So there's a process that we follow to transition from a job to a business. Now, I'm curious to know what you think about this. Are you in that situation? And do you recognize the need for a mindset shift if you want to go from a job to a business? Huge mindset shift, and that's where the hypnosis comes in. People say, well, but you're not a business major. You were not a business major in college. How can you advise people on this? Well, I just read a bunch of books, but I don't claim to be a business expert. What I do is I lay out a pathway that has been developed by other really smart people, and I say, look, this has been found to work. Can you do it? If you can and you go out and you do it, nothing else to talk about. It is no different from weight loss. You call me up and you say, I want to lose weight. I say to you on the phone, look, eat less and exercise more and you lose weight. You go, and if you do eat less and exercise more, you will lose weight. We're done. But if you call me back and you say, I try to eat less, but I crave desserts. I try to exercise more, but I feel tired, whatever, right? Then there might be a mindset shift in order that will allow you to do what you need to do in order to achieve different results. Same thing in the transition from a job to a business. I just lay out a plan. The plan was not developed by me. It's no different from this notion of eating less and exercise more. I didn't come up with it, but I can help you achieve it. This idea of organizing a job into a business is not something that I invented, but I can help you achieve it because it will require a mindset shift. So happy that we've had an opportunity to share these ideas. Please let me know what you think, and by all means, if you would, kindly subscribe to the channel so that more people can participate in this dialogue. Thank you so much, and blessings.